Welcome back to Folder 404, the place where lost stories are found and should have stayed buried. Each night, I open a new folder, a case forgotten by time, hidden in shadows and sealed for a reason. These stories are not fiction, not entirely. If you're listening with headphones, good. If the lights are off, even better. What you're about to hear was never meant to be heard. Our journey starts here. Enjoy. The silence below. The first thing they noticed was how quiet it had become. They were 6 weeks into the Mariana Shelf exploratory project, drilling into what the schematics called Trench Z22, a pit that didn't officially exist on any naval charts. Their platform, Kaite Delta, floated above 11,000 meters of ink-black ocean, far removed from shipping lanes or radio coverage. It was a good assignment, if you liked silence. "Pressure's peaking again," murmured Reyes, the night engineer, watching the readout blink amber. "It shouldn't do that at this depth. We've vented twice already." His voice barely broke the room's stillness. No one responded right away. Dr. Lara Morrow, geophysicist and team lead, was hunched over a sonar map, her face ghostly in the blue monitor light. Her fingers tapped unconsciously at her knee. "You said it was hollow," she said finally. "I said it echoed." A third voice joined them, light, amused. "Same thing down here, isn't it?" Yuri, the platform's systems tech, leaned in the doorway with a thermos in hand, steam curling around his pale face. "You echo something long enough," he added, "it starts to echo back." No one laughed. The drill struck something at 3:17 a.m. There was no shudder, no quake, just a sudden drop in resistance, a plummet in geological density, so sharp it looked like a malfunction. Alara leaned closer to the seismic graph. "That's a cavity. A big one," Reyes whispered. "Like a dome, an entire system, maybe." Outside, a remote camera fed static. By morning, the rig was different. The hallways felt longer. The lights seemed colder. There was no wind, no creak of metal, just the distant, constant hum of the drill shaft. "Where's Clark?" Alara asked over breakfast. They were down to 5 now. Alara, Reyes, Yuri, Brenna the medic, and Hoss, their gruff logistics officer. Clark, the maintenance diver, hadn't come to the galley. "Probably crashed in the sub-bay," Hoss muttered through a mouthful of eggs. Pulled a double, but his eyes didn't leave the hallway. Later that day, they found Clark's dive suit, floating in the airlock like a discarded skin, helmet open, no body, no trace, just his ID tag wedged under the bench. Brenna ran the oxygen logs. "He never left the suit. There's no breach, no leak. He just vanished." "Suit was zipped from the outside," Reyes added, pale. "Who the hell zipped him in?" No one answered. That night, Alara heard tapping, tap, tap, tap 3, knocks against her cabin wall, rhythmic, measured. She waited, silence, then tap, tap, tap. She opened the door. No one was there, just the hallway stretching into darkness. By the third day, Reyes was certain someone else was on the platform. "We're burning extra oxygen," he said, voice low. "Enough for 6 people, and all cabin doors have logged motion, even clocks." "Glitches," Brenna offered, but her voice trembled. "No," Yuri whispered. "It's the mimic." He said it like he'd been expecting it. They stared. "You know that thing we drilled into?" he continued. "It wasn't a cavern. It was a womb, a pocket. Something was in there, waiting. You're telling me a sea creature climbed 11,000 meters to sneak into our base? Number, I'm telling you it rose fast, right through the shaft, and it doesn't walk like us. They found the first body the next morning. Clark, or what used to be Clark, was folded inside a storage locker, bones bent, eyes glassy. His mouth was stretched into a perfect O, and in the galley he sat, alive, smiling, drinking coffee. No one spoke, no one moved. Finally, Brenna said, "Clark?" He turned slowly. Morning. His smile never touched his eyes. Later, Ilara whispered, "We lock it in. Whatever it is," they agreed in terrified silence. But when they tried to subdue it, it didn't run, it watched. And when Hoss lunged at it with a pipe, it let him, taking the blow squarely to the temple. Crack, it fell. But when they turned it over, it was Reyes, real Reyes, lips slack, blood pooling. Hoss vomited. "I saw it," he cried. "I swear." Ilara backed away. "It's changing. It's learning." Brenna sobbed. "How do we know it's not any of us?" The next day, Yuri was gone, just gone. No blood, no struggle, only his thermos, still warm. And yet, that night, Ilara saw him through the porthole, outside, walking across the ocean floor. No suit, no tank, just his figure, slow and steady, hands brushing along the hole as if memorizing its shape. He stopped, turned, stared directly at her. She screamed. Now the mimic didn't hide anymore. It used Yuri's voice, then Reyes's, then her own. It whispered to her through the vents, from behind doors, from just beyond the light. Ilara ran the command override, issued a distress beacon, but the antenna was gone, cut, not damaged. It didn't want them calling out. It wanted them quiet. 2 days passed. Only Ilara and Brenna remained. They sealed themselves in the med bay, starving, trembling. They spoke little. Only once, Brenna leaned close and whispered, "What if it never came in?" Ilara blinked. "What do you mean? What if it was always here? What if we drilled into it?" That night, Brenna slit her own throat. Her last word was, "Listen." Ilara buried her beneath the coolant bay. She didn't cry, she just sat in silence. Now there were footsteps in the corridor, slow, wet, coming toward her. She sat against the door, axe in hand. The light flickered. A voice, her own, whispered through the speaker.
"Let me in, Ilara. You're not alone."
Pause, silence, then tap, tap, tap. She didn't scream, she listened. And beneath the hum of the platform, below the creak of the hull, far beneath the crushing black, something breathed. The silence below was never empty, it was waiting, and now it listens. You heard it, didn't you? That voice under the story, the part that wasn't supposed to bleed through. It's not over. There's another case waiting, another folder they tried to erase, but it's still here, still alive. If you're brave, if the shadows haven't started whispering your name yet, go on, open the next one. We'll be waiting inside. Folder 404 never ends. Whispers in the static. The tapes were heavier than he remembered. Not physically, no. Each reel weighed the same, but they carried something, a density in the air around them, as if the years sealed inside had fermented into something volatile. Marek held the last one up to the window. The plastic casing had yellowed. The faded Cyrillic label read, Bog Tree, Zapis 14, God 3, recording 14. He slid it into his duffel bag and zipped it shut. The sun was already dipping behind the concrete skeletons of Plavishch, casting long shadows through the skeletal buildings, Eastern Europe's forgotten outskirts, abandoned by Moscow, ignored by the West. He'd been back 2 months. No one asked questions. Not here. They barely noticed him at all. The flat was cold and bare, save for a moth-eaten armchair, a warped table, and the hulking video equipment he'd scavenged from an old university lab. Marek dusted the last VCR with the sleeve of his sweater and pressed it into place. He didn't look at the wall of tapes behind him. Not yet. His eyes itched with fatigue and something else, a throb behind the forehead, dull but insistent, like a migraine knocking on a door that hadn't yet opened. He selected the first reel, not God 3, not yet. Start small. The screen flickered. A hiss of static filled the room. A man appeared, seated at a table under sickly fluorescent light, his face obscured by shadow, the voice muffled by distortion. We continue as directed. Soviet Science Council authorizes this as Phase 4, then silence. The image twisted, lines of noise snaked across the screen, and within that static, Marek leaned forward. It was faint, but there, a whisper, not in Russian, not in any language he knew, a rasping, rhythmic murmur, like breath echoing in a cave. He rewound, played again, slower. There it was, beneath the hiss, a word, a phrase he didn't know, but it knew him. By the third night, Marek stopped rewinding. He let the tapes play. All of them. He barely ate, drank just enough to keep from shaking. His eyes never left the screen. Even in sleep, when he slumped in the chair, the whisper threaded through his dreams. It told him things. Where he had erred, who to avoid, which streets were no longer safe. He scribbled in old notebooks diagrams of antennae and odd circles intersected with runes. These were not symbols he had seen in any Soviet documentation, and yet he drew them perfectly as if he always knew. One morning, a knock at the door. 3 sharp raps. He froze. Another knock, this time softer, almost polite. He opened it. A girl stood there, no older than 10, pale, thin, wearing a patched coat too large for her frame. "Your TV is loud," she said flatly. "It hums. My brother hears it when he sleeps." Marek blinked. "I don't have a TV." She nodded, unconvinced. "It sings at night, the same words I hear in church." He stiffened. "What words?" She closed her eyes, her voice lowered, melodic. "Anun, telve, kolsera." Marek's stomach dropped. He'd written those words just hours earlier. He started locking the door, but it didn't matter. More children came. Some lingered outside his building. Some stared through windows. A few began humming. He recognized the tune. It came from tape 7. One night, a neighbor, old Mrs. Elena from down the hall, stood in his kitchen. He hadn't heard her enter. Her eyes were clouded, but she smiled gently, like a sleepwalker. "You shouldn't keep it to yourself, Marek." She tilted her head. "It's divine, isn't it?" He tried to speak, but his throat was locked. All he could manage was, "How did you get in?" She stepped forward, took his hand. Her skin was ice. "It's not yours," she whispered. "It belongs to us all." He destroyed 3 tapes the next morning, burned them in a trash barrel in the alley, but the static still whispered. Even without the VCR, he unplugged everything. No change. The noise was no longer bound to the machine. It was inside the walls, inside him. Desperate, Marek went to the church, the last one still standing in Plavishche. Father Andrei listened patiently, though his eyes flickered with growing alarm. You say the voice tells you things? Yes, Marek hissed. It teaches me. He pulled a notebook from his coat. The pages were filled with concentric sigils and formulae that looked halfway between mathematics and prayer. Father Andre paled. I've seen these before, not here, back when I studied in Kiev. He pointed to a ring of symbols. This is Kievan Apocrypha, heretical theology. It was buried by the Orthodox Council in 1912. Marek smiled faintly. I didn't write it. The tapes did, the priest swallowed. What do you want from me? Help me contain it. Father Andre paused, then nodded once. I will come tonight, after Vespers. He never arrived. Later that night, Marek heard the bells of the church ringing wildly. By dawn, it had burned to the ground. That was the final sign. The voice, God 3, would not be silenced, and it would not be contained. He returned to the flat, dug out the last reel, recording 14, the forbidden one. He played it. The tape was degraded, almost unwatchable. At first, only static. Then a face, mouth stretched wide in a silent scream, eyes empty, the flesh around them bubbled and pulsed. The image flickered, and Marek saw himself, not as he was now, but older, standing in the same room, surrounded by children, all whispering in unison. The words were clearer now. We are his echo. We are the breath between channels. We are many and one. Marek fell to his knees, sobbing. The noise filled every cell of his body, and then silence. When the authorities finally entered the flat weeks later, they found no one, only static playing on a loop. In towns nearby, more children began speaking in foreign tongues in unison. Marek was never seen again, but sometimes, on dead frequencies in forgotten corners of the spectrum, the whisper returns just for a second, and then it's gone, for now. The file ends here, but something always leaks through. Another whisper, another shadow, another folder. Tomorrow it opens again, new case, new corruption. Until then, keep your lights low, keep your headphones on, and if something calls your name, don't answer. Folder 404, file closed.